On Mother's Day, I watched Celine present a diamond ring and a cruise ticket to Patricia, her husband's mother. When my turn came, she handed me a $10 plastic flower. I didn't cry. I simply placed it carefully into my purse, a symbol that would guide every step after. That day was not the end. It was only the beginning. Before I begin the story, tell me, where are you listening from today? I drove slowly through the tree-lined street, watching the sunlight fall across the perfect lawns. It was early afternoon, and the neighborhood felt too quiet for what was supposed to be a celebration. When I reached Celine's house, the driveway was already full. Cars lined the curb, polished and expensive, the kind of show one puts on when appearances matter more than sincerity. I parked down the street and walked the rest of the way, my shoes clicking on the pavement. Inside, the chatter was loud. Every voice raised a little too high, as if rehearsed for a show. Celine hugged me quickly, the kind of embrace meant for witnesses, not warmth. Dorian stood by the grill, his eyes darting past me, landing instead on Patricia, who sat at the center of it all, pearls gleaming and posture unyielding. A neighbor glanced my way. "You must be Patricia's guest." I smiled, careful but firm. "No, I'm Celine's mother." The table stretched long under the canopy, china and crystal set with practiced elegance. I scanned for my place card and found it near the end, tucked by the service door. A small current of discomfort stirred, but I kept my expression calm. A woman nearby tried to smooth the moment with a remark about the sunshine. I answered evenly, "Yes, sunshine can be revealing. Respect isn't bought, it's noticed." I slid into the only chair left. It wobbled slightly as servers passed behind me, brushing my shoulder with every trip. My plate came last, the napkin folded differently from the rest. Someone asked if I could take a photo of the group, as though my role was to frame the memory but not belong to it. Patricia leaned forward, her voice syrupy. "So glad you could make it." I met her gaze. "I never miss important days. If you don't set a boundary, someone else will draw it for you." Glasses clinked, and Celine rose to her feet with a velvet box and a white envelope. "This is for the woman who has held us together," she said, her voice soft but carrying across the patio. She handed them to Patricia, who opened the box to reveal a diamond ring that blazed in the sunlight. Gasps and applause followed as the envelope unfolded to reveal a Mediterranean cruise. Dorian raised his glass, adding, "To the woman who shaped the best of us." He did not look at me. I pressed my hands together in my lap, knuckles tightening under the linen. Celine's words still rang the woman who held us together. That woman was not me. I breathed slowly, refusing to let my face betray what burned inside. A gift reveals the giver long before it reaches the receiver. Finally, Celine reached for a small paper bag and handed it to me. Inside was a plastic flower, the price tag still stuck beneath its stem. The card was hastily written, my name cramped in the corner. Silence followed, heavy and sharp, as people fumbled for their wine glasses. "Thank you," I said, my voice level, not trembling. Patricia chuckled, her ring flashing. "Isn't that sweet?" I set the flower beside my plate. "Sweetness is a matter of taste. Money speaks loudly. Dignity speaks once." The toasts resumed without me. No one asked for my words. When another guest handed me a camera, I stepped back, arranging them in the frame, smiling with practiced ease. I slipped the plastic bloom into my tote, as if it were fragile crystal. A server whispered, "Ma'am, are you all right?" "I'm old enough to choose the answer," I replied. Silence can be a tool. Surrender is a choice. When the meal ended, I stood and walked out into the bright afternoon, alone. I placed the plastic flower on the passenger seat. It stared back like a mirror. Tomorrow, I told myself, would not look like today. When I unlocked my front door that evening, the house greeted me with silence. No voices, no balloons, not even a forgotten card on the table. The kitchen light glowed against the marble counter like a single spotlight on a stage, waiting for someone to claim it. I placed the plastic flower on the counter, not as a joke, but as a witness. My purse slid down the chair with a soft thud, and I whispered to myself, "Coffee first, facts second." Ritual steadied my hands where anger wanted to take over. I looked around, no cake, no calls, just the ordinary quiet of a home that belonged entirely to me. Quiet doesn't mean weak. It means I get to pick my next word. I picked up the flower again, turning it under the light. The cheap mold lines scratched my fingers, and the sticky patch where a price tag had been still clung to the stem. It wasn't a keepsake. It was evidence. I cleared a space on the counter and set out a notebook, a pen, and my old check register. Patricia's laugh rang in my memory, brittle and loud, but I answered it with the scratch of ink against paper. On the first line, I wrote the date and a title, what I actually gave. If it isn't written, it never happened. Memory fades, records don't. I opened the file cabinet in the hallway, the one Harold used to tease me about your second brain. He called it, inside were folders marked tuition, car notes, mortgage relief, and emergencies. Every tab held a promise I had once kept, receipts curled from age, but I pressed them flat with my palm, remembering the long hours spent waiting in offices, the late-night calls when bills threatened to drown them. A rhythm emerged: $1 $200 for textbooks, $6 $800 for a car repair, $15 $000 for a down payment rescue. I stacked them by year, watching the pile grow like rings on a tree. Dorian's launch party invoice landed at the bottom. Under a tab I labeled non-essentials. I thought of Harold again, measure twice, cut once, in America. Paper isn't just proof, it's armor. At the desk, I logged into online banking. A code buzzed my phone before the account opened, and then the screen filled with charges. A gym membership I'd never used, landscaping fees for their zip code, a temporary phone line still active. I clicked export, saving every statement into a new folder titled Celine Support Raw, then a red flag, a pending e-signature for a credit line increase, timestamp just last night. My jaw set. I took a screenshot, emailed it to myself, and typed in the subject line, Ledger Do Not Delete. Two locks my resolve and this password, trust is a door. Good doors have keys and hinges. The calculator blinked back at me after I tallied each category. Education, housing, cars, extras. The total rested near $400,000. Not enough to ruin me, but enough to make me invisible if I kept quiet. I underlined 3 transfers, the ones that saved the day but left me outside the story. I drew a table in my notebook: date, amount, purpose, recipient. My handwriting was calm, and the calm itself was its own kind of fury. They didn't turn into takers overnight. I trained them. Math has no heart, but it has a spine. I set alerts for any new charges, added daily summaries, and removed names that had no right to stay on my accounts. One step at a time, I drafted Monday's agenda: call Margaret Chen, my attorney, and ask about exploitation laws. I labeled a binder Ledger Working Copy and slid the pages into clear sleeves, each one a shield. The plastic flower I dropped into my purse. It would go with me, not as a relic, but as a reminder. Plan slow, act clean. A boundary isn't a wall, it's a door you keep the key to. Before bed, I tapped Harold's old voicemail. His voice filled the kitchen. Don't let anyone make you small. Marlis. My shoulders settled, then squared. One tear traced down. Not for pity, but as a seal. I wrote one last line: I will not fund my own erasure. Preparation turns fear into posture. The elevator hummed as it carried me upward, its mirrored walls reflecting my steady gaze. I clutched the binder against my chest, the plastic flower tucked safely in my purse like a talisman no one else would understand. Outside the glass, uptown Charlotte glimmered, steel and stone built on money's geography. Across the street, the Wells Fargo Tower loomed, a reminder of who holds the cards in this city. At the reception desk, I signed my name in the visitor log, deliberate strokes as if every letter needed to testify. My phone was set to silent. Whatever tried to interrupt could wait. When Margaret Chen stepped out, her handshake was firm, her eyes sharp. She gestured toward a table already set with a legal pad marked with today's date. Prepared people don't chase control, they schedule it. She flipped open the binder, scanning line after line until her pen circled the screenshot of the pending e-signature. She paused, then drew a mark beside the autopays linked to Celine's address. Her words carried the weight of courtroom clarity as she laid out definitions: consent, authorization, benefit without permission, all sharpened under North Carolina law. She looked up, voice steady. This is textbook elder financial exploitation. My breath caught, but she didn't flinch. She outlined steps: cease and desist letters, fraud alerts, revoking lingering authorizations, preserving every scrap of paper. You'll call the bank's fraud desk today. Written instructions only. In person, verification only. Her eyes softened briefly. You're not overreacting. I leaned forward, my voice even. Then let's use the book. When the rules are on your side, you don't raise your voice. You raise your paperwork. We worked line by line. Freeze new authorizations, notify vendors to remove assistant access, enable two-factor across every portal. Margaret drafted the first letter. Precise language anchored by dates and amounts. I pointed to the credit line attempt. This comes first. She nodded. Already drafting certified mail templates. We scheduled a bank call for noon. She would sit in as counsel. I signed each page deliberately, adding tracking slips into my notebook. I'm not punishing. I said, I'm pruning. She replied calmly. Healthy trees still shed dead branches. Clarity is kindness when money muddies love. Margaret leaned back. Can you show me a pattern? Something beyond dollars. I slid across a printout from last fall, my birthday remembered by an automated text. A marketing link dangled beneath the words. Proof it had been cued, not typed. Margaret's mouth pressed into a thin line. I clipped it to the context section. It cost nothing to remember, I murmured. She looked up, voice quiet but cutting. And you paid to be forgotten. Neglect is loud when you stop making excuses for it. Together we composed a boundary message. Neutral, factual, brief. All future financial requests must go through counsel. Account authorizations are changing. I saved it. Unsent. Timing marked for 4:30 p.m. Margaret's reminder was crisp. Short, factual, final. I answered. No oxygen for arguments. A line is not a threat. It's a map of where I end. Before I left, we rehearsed the order of battle, bank fraud desk at noon, vendor calls after lunch, certified mail before closing, no face-to-face with Celine today. Margaret's number sat newly added to my phone favorites. I placed the plastic flower back into my purse, not as grievance, but reminder. I'm done funding illusions, I told her. Margaret smiled faintly. Then stop supplying the stage. Dignity walks out the same door your money uses. As I descended, my phone vibrated. A message from the bank flashed. Fraud prevention will call you at noon to verify an attempted assistant inquiry. I watched the floor numbers sink toward the lobby, each ding steady as a drumbeat. At noon, the phone would ring and I wouldn't flinch. At 11:47, the phone lit up with Celine's name. The first call I ignored. By the third, I set the screen face down on the table. The binder, my pen, and Margaret's checklist were lined neatly before me, a small army prepared for battle. A text broke through. Mom, we need to talk now. It's urgent. I muted the thread, letting the silence stand in for my answer. I looked at the clock over the stove, watching each second land. The bank would call at noon. That was my priority, I whispered to myself. Facts first. No family. When urgency doesn't respect your plan, it isn't urgent, it's manipulative. By the time the clock hit 11:55, missed calls stacked on the screen. I wrote the number 12 at the top of my legal pad and underlined it twice. Voicemail 1. Please pick up. Voicemail 2. People will judge you. Voicemail 3. We're family. I logged the timestamps, one after another. Silence wasn't surrender, it was record keeping. Dorian tried next. Hey Marlis, there's some confusion with contracts. I jotted his name and the minute, even the neighbor's knock mixed with the buzz of the phone. But I stayed in my chair, spine straight. They could race. I would keep time. Not answering is an answer when you're protecting what the noise wants to take. At noon sharp, the bank's number appeared. My voice was steady as I confirmed identity, requested fraud notes on file. and demanded that any future inquiries require my in-person presence. I flagged the pending e-signature attempt. The agent froze it, opened a case, and emailed me a reference number. I copied it into my notebook twice, then forwarded the details to Margaret with the subject bank active. If it isn't documented, I said aloud, it didn't happen. If it is, no opinion can erase it. Minutes later, my phone buzzed again, but this time it wasn't a call. The doorbell app flashed motion-detected front door. I tapped the feed. There was Celine, sunlight bright on her hair, phone to her ear. I turned up the volume. I'm at my mom's. Yes, her assistant. My hand clenched, then steadied as I pressed record. She bent, reaching under the mat where a key no longer lived, and knocked the same rhythm she had as a child. I stayed still. I scrubbed back on the feed and froze. Saturday, 4:18 p.m. Celine, slipping in with a forgotten spare, rifling through the drawers of my desk. I screen captured the frame, saved it twice. Tagged S6 doorbell betrayal. A camera tells the story you couldn't say without being called dramatic. I exported the clips onto a labeled USB, then into my secure drive. Redundancy was insurance. I noted exactly what she touched: the left file drawer, the top desk tray, the envelope marked insurance. My fingers typed a clean summary to Margaret assistant claim proof attached. Another text arrived as I hit send, Mom. Please, open up. We can fix this before it gets messy. I logged it with the others. Messy isn't the truth, I said under my breath. Messy is what the truth reveals. Boundaries sound harsh only to those who benefited from their absence. The knocking grew louder. Outside, Dorian's truck pulled up, engine idling at the curb. His shadow joined hers on the porch. I slid the plastic flower onto the binder, anchoring the pile of evidence, and pressed record on my phone. When I opened the door, I didn't invite them in. I invited the truth. I opened the door slowly, binder pressed to my side, the plastic flower perched on top like a silent witness. Celine's words tumbled out before I could breathe, Mom. You've misunderstood everything. Her hands fluttered, but her eyes darted to the binder as if it were a loaded weapon. Behind her, Dorian stepped up, voice rehearsed and smooth. Let's not make this ugly. We can straighten it out. I kept my feet square at the threshold, the line of wood between us marking exactly where my control began. If you came to explain, I said, my phone already recording in my hand. Explain to the camera, too. When you own the doorway, you own the terms of entry. Celine's tone sharpened. Stop freezing accounts. You're embarrassing us. Patricia must never hear about this. The word us rolled heavy, as if my rights were less than family honor. Dorian added quickly, this isn't fraud, it's family logistics. We're building something together. My reply was steady. Logistics without consent is theft. They shifted under the weight of the words. I stayed silent long enough for them to fill the air with contradictions. Celine's eyes glistened as she whispered, you'll ruin my marriage. I met her gaze without flinching. You ruined our trust. Ultimatums reveal who thinks silence is a weapon and who knows truth is. I pulled up the doorbell footage on my phone and tilted the screen toward them. There Celine was, in bright daylight, telling someone she was my assistant while trying the key under the mat. The timestamp glowed in the corner. Her face blanched, lips parting without words. Dorian stuttered. She was just checking on you. I cut him off evenly. Assistants don't open drawers labeled insurance. With one tap, I forwarded the clip to Margaret Chen, standing inches from them. Technology doesn't take sides. I said, it takes timestamps. Lies sprint, but walk records always arrive. I stepped back into the house, but left the door wide. You may stand there while I speak. My voice carried the kind of calm that comes only after counting to 10 100 times. I listed each step aloud. Fraud alerts filed, ledger compiled, certified letters already in transit. Any further attempt to touch my accounts will be treated as legal action, not family dispute. Celine trembled visibly, her arms folded in on themselves. Dorian's jaw clenched, eyes darting toward the street like he was hunting for an exit strategy. Their silence was as good as consent, and I wrote the time down in my notepad without breaking eye contact. This isn't negotiation, I told them flatly. This is notice. Power feels harsh only when you've lived off someone else's softness. They backed toward the steps, whispers caught in their throats when a car door slammed hard enough to echo. Patricia Harrow emerged, pearls catching the sunlight like a blade. She marched up the walk, her voice cutting the air before she even reached the porch. What on earth is going on here? I tightened my grip on the binder, the plastic flower squeaking faintly under my hand as if reminding me not to blink. Patricia wasn't here to mediate. She was here to crown her heir. Patricia Harrow's arrival was never quiet. Her pearls glinted like a string of small knives. Her voice pitched for the neighbors rather than for me. She didn't even look my way first. Celine, Dorian, why are you standing here like beggars come inside? Her hand flicked toward me as if I were the obstacle. Not the owner of this porch. Marlis, don't make this harder than it needs to be. I stood square at the threshold, binder under my arm. Inside isn't where this belongs. Patricia's eyes narrowed. The performance beginning. Family matters stay private. I let the silence stretch. Privacy demanded by power is often secrecy in disguise. Then came the blow. Patricia's words, sharp as glass. You're airing dirty laundry. Do you want the whole block whispering that you've jeopardized your daughter's marriage? She raised her chin, as if the blinds twitching in nearby windows were her audience. You gave money. Yes, but mothers are measured by loyalty, not checks. Celine's eyes brimmed with tears, her shoulders quivering like a staged collapse. Dorian crossed his arms, verdict already cast. I didn't raise my voice. Their chorus only underlined itself. Patricia jabbed the air. Do you want to be remembered as bitter? I answered plainly. Better bitter than blind. Shame is currency for those who fear truth. I steadied my breath and turned directly to Patricia. You weren't at the bank. You weren't in the ledger. You weren't in the room where my name was erased. I flipped open the binder. Pages marked in ink, receipts anchored by paper clips. Their noise faltered as my tone cut through. Celine whispered, Mom, stop! Yeah! As if words themselves were dangerous. Patricia dismissed me with a wave. I didn't flinch. Respect is not inheritance, I said, eyes locked on hers. It's transaction. I withdrew mine. Volume isn't proof. Silence isn't guilt. I laid the pages bare, first the $29,000 down payment, then the utilities, then the tuition loan signed with my credit. Patricia snapped. Families help each other. I met her glare. Families don't forge signatures at midnight. I tapped my phone, showing them the doorbell footage Celine claiming to be my assistant while prying at my desk. The timestamp glowed like a judge's gavel. Patricia's face flushed crimson. Celine dissolved into sobs. Dorian muttered weakly, That's out of context, I answered coldly. Context is where lies go to breathe. Facts don't need oxygen. Paper remembers when people pretend to forget. I closed the binder slowly. Each movement deliberate. Any attempt beyond this line, financial or physical, will be treated as trespass. From the toad at my feet. I drew a sealed envelope and handed it to Patricia. This is a certified cease and desist. You'll want to read it. Celine gasped. You wouldn't. I met her eyes. I already did. Patricia's hand trembled before she clenched it into stillness. Pearls pressed tight against her throat. Around us. Neighbors had gathered on porches, the hush more damning than applause. This isn't between mothers, I said, my voice steady as stone. This is between truth and convenience. Boundaries may break families, but silence breaks souls. Patricia slipped the envelope into her purse without breaking eye contact. Her words dropped like cold iron. You'll regret this. I stepped backward, crossing the threshold, and closed the door with a slow, final click. Thunder rolled far off, but the silence in my house was heavier. By the time the sun set that Monday, retaliation had already started. My phone blinked with missed calls from Celine, Dorian, and a number I didn't recognize but traced to his company's office. A text followed, sharp and brittle. We'll talk when you calm down. I logged the time, took a screenshot, and slid it into the binder. Margaret's reply to the certified mail tracking came back received. The doorbell app pinged once more, but only caught quick footsteps fading down my walkway. I brewed tea, placed the plastic flower back in my purse, and checked each lock before sitting down. I whispered, "I don't argue with storms. I close windows. You don't have to outrun a mess, you just have to stop feeding it." Tuesday was quieter, but paperwork kept me steady. The fraud desk email confirmed the e-signature attempt had been frozen. I printed the case number, slid it into its sleeve, and felt a strange calm settle. Vendor replies arrived one at a time. Assistant access revoked. Auto pays suspended. I recorded a new voicemail. "Please leave your name, number, and legal purpose. Counsel will return your call." Margaret liked order, and so did I. Every text, every voicemail exported to PDF, sorted into the folder marked Post C and D responses. When the bank rep told me, "Miss Kemple, will require in-person ID going forward," I smiled into the receiver. Good, that's how it should have been. Security isn't paranoia, it's housekeeping. By midweek, cracks started to show. An email confirmed Dorian's landscaping contract was canceled, effective immediately. Another contact forwarded me a screenshot, his last boast about expansion quietly erased from the chamber's page. A terse client note landed in my inbox. Given the conflict of interest, we'll reassess. They didn't need to say it. The goodwill had been mine all along. I didn't gloat. I simply wrote dates in the ledger. "You wanted the contracts," I murmured. "You forgot about the relationship." Leverage borrowed from love has to be returned with interest. Celine's online shine dimmed too. Her feed, once a carousel of brunches and staged gratitude, went silent. A single story flashed a table set for no one. Captioned "busy week," then vanished. Patricia's daughter stopped leaving comments altogether. At the mailbox, neighbors lingered just a beat longer, their nods carrying a new weight, their eyes softer. One asked gently, "You holding up all right?" I nodded. I hold what needs holding. Reputation is loud, character is patient. By Thursday, they tried to seize the narrative. A group thread lit up. Celine dragging Patricia and me into the same chat. "Can we all just reset?" I left the group instantly, replying only to Celine all requests through counsel, screenshot, file, done. Dorian's voicemail was worse, a veiled warning about defamation if I didn't stop spreading stories. I sent it to Margaret. Her response, "We have the receipts. Let them allege." My throat burned with the urge to clap back, but I drank water instead. I'm not a comment section, I reminded myself. When someone fears facts, they attack tone. That night, another message arrived, this one not meant for me. A voice memo forwarded by mistake. Celine, speaking to a friend, "I did what I had to for Patricia to see me as real family. Mom's different. It's not like she needs the money. If I'd asked, she'd have said yes anyway. Why make it a whole thing? I listened twice. The second time, duller than the first. Not shock clarity. Entitlement wrapped as reason. I saved the file. Labeled it S13_confession, then closed the binder. "You wanted to be seen," I whispered. "You chose the wrong mirror. Confession without remorse is just autobiography." Friday. I tried to end the week on steadier ground. A call from Susan Friel, walk with me Saturday, and I said yes without hesitation. We talked about weather, pottery sales, nothing that bled. Healing deserved a place on my calendar, too. That night, I cooked a small meal, skipped the wine, and let Harold's old voicemail play only halfway before turning it off. Love didn't need replay to stay real. Dusk came with one last turn. The doorbell app caught a gloved hand sliding a large envelope under my front door. No knock, only retreating steps. I waited before picking it up. Ritual over impulse. Inside was Celine's handwriting, a letter sealed tight. With a note clipped on top, "Please read alone." I set it beside the binder, washed my hands, and left it unopened. Some words don't deserve the night. I chose the bench before I touched the envelope. Lake Norman's water shimmered under the morning sun, rippling in soft layers that demanded my attention first. Words could wait. Water couldn't. The outer note had been clear. "Please read alone." I honored it not for Celine's sake, but for my own peace. My phone stayed silenced, recorder off. This wasn't evidence gathering. This was closure seeking. The plastic flower in my purse pressed lightly against my hip, reminding me of every boundary I'd drawn since that brunch. I broke the seal in one clean motion, like tearing off a bandage that had lingered too long, a slow breath, and a reminder to myself, read everything. Believe only what's true. You can meet an apology with an open mind and a closed door. Her handwriting curved across the page. Careful. Practiced. I'm sorry for the flower. I'm sorry for the assistant thing. I noted the omissions, no stole, no lied. She spoke of pressure to be noticed by Patricia, of fear that her curated life might slip if she didn't keep feeding its image. She admitted to assuming I would fix what she broke, because I always had. Then came the pivot. If you lift the C and D, we can rebuild. Dorian will apologize in person. We'll make a family post. I underlined it with my nail. It wasn't an apology. It was a trade. The one line that pierced through was near the end. I didn't see you. I saw your wallet. I folded the paper once, not to bury it, but to file it in the right drawer of my mind. Remorse is when the spotlight turns inward, not back on the stage. I pulled my notebook from my tote and wrote 3 sentences. The C&D stays. Contact goes through counsel for 90 days. If you want reconciliation, begin with restitution and therapy receipts, not a family post. For myself alone, I added 1 line. No emergencies that arrive at my doorstep without paperwork. I sent Margaret a short text, reply by mail Monday. Please add conditions. Then I slid the letter into a clear sleeve and snapped it into the binder. Filed, not festered. Forgiveness can be future-facing and still be fenced. Before heading home, I walked into the bank branch by the marina. Initials went down on transfer documents. No announcement needed. My consulting work was formally sold, proceeds designated where I wanted them. A notary met me at a coffee shop to finalize estate changes, grandchildren's trusts secured, disbursements locked out of Celine's hands. I emailed the chamber, tightening conflict of interest language on my name in retirement. A donation left my account for an elder exploitation clinic, carrying Harold's name. Quiet moves, no audience. A clean ledger is the quietest revenge. Susan met me by the dock. We talked about pottery glaze, choir practice, the peach she brought from the market. Sticky juice ran down our wrists and we laughed. Not about Celine, not about Patricia, just life. I let myself play 5 seconds of Harold's old voicemail before putting the phone away. Then I signed up for a Thursday class, filling my calendar with my own handwriting. Peace is what's left when you stop renting space to chaos. Back home, I placed the plastic flower into a shadow box. Beneath a brass plate, boundary established Mother's Day. Charlotte, it hung by the door. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder. I took a single photo from my records and turned off the light with a steady hand. Symbols don't heal you. They help you stop reopening the wound. Sunday's lake was still as glass. My phone buzzed once under the binder. I didn't look. I poured coffee and opened a fresh page. What I build next? If she knocked again, the door would open to rules, not needs.